So the question is something like this. You have often heard that you do not live in a world where you must push against life, force circumstances into place, or assert yourself into every outcome. You have heard that your vibration is doing much of the summoning, that your thoughts are calling experiences toward you, and that what you are aligned with can come into your life without constant struggle. And yet there is a part of you that asks, how do I balance that understanding with action? How do I allow what I want to come to me without feeling that I must chase it, force it, or work myself into exhaustion? And then perhaps you make it more specific. I would like to create $1 million, but I do not want to spend my life doing work that feels unpleasant, exhausting, or incompatible with who I am. And we would say that this is a very useful statement, because hidden inside it is the exact vibrational contradiction that has been slowing the experience down. You are saying, I want $1 million. And almost immediately you are adding, but I believe the paths that could lead to it are paths I do not want to take. So one part of you is reaching toward abundance, while another part is bracing against the conditions you believe abundance requires. One thought opens the door. The next thought closes it. One thought says, yes, I want this. The next thought says, but I do not want what I think I must go through to receive it. And there is nothing wrong with you for doing that. Most people have practiced this kind of contradiction for so long that it feels completely reasonable. It feels like realism. It feels like intelligence. It feels like protecting yourself from disappointment. But vibrationally, it is like pressing the accelerator and the brake at the same time. You are summoning movement while simultaneously resisting movement. So let us soften the statement. Instead of saying, I want $1 million, but I do not want to work for it, you could say, I would enjoy experiencing $1 million, and I would like to discover a path to it that feels compatible with me. Feel the difference in that. There is no argument in that statement. There is no demand that you already know the path. There is no insistence that the path must be difficult. And there is no declaration that the path does not exist. You are simply saying, I know what I want, and I am open to discovering a way that feels natural, satisfying, and right for me. That thought breathes. That thought gives you room. It is like loosening a tight grip and allowing your hands to open. You might continue. I know there are people who experience considerable abundance in ways that would not feel painful or inappropriate to me. I know there are people who once stood exactly where I am standing, wanting more freedom, wanting more resources, and not yet knowing how those resources would arrive. That is a much softer story. You are no longer trying to prove that it cannot happen. You are acknowledging that you do not yet know how it will happen, but you are also acknowledging that not knowing how is not evidence that there is no way. And that distinction is important, because very often when people speak about what they want and why they want it, they feel lighter. But when they begin talking about how it must happen, where it must come from, who must provide it, and when it must arrive, resistance enters the conversation. You say, I want greater financial abundance because I want freedom. That feels good. I want more choices. That feels good. I want to feel relaxed when I make decisions. That feels good. I want to be generous. That feels good. I want to travel, create, explore, support people I love, and enjoy my life. That feels good. But then you ask, exactly which job will create it? Which person will introduce me to the opportunity? What date will the money arrive? What sequence of events must take place? What am I missing? Why has it not happened yet? And now you have moved away from the feeling of what you want and into the discomfort of not having the answers. The desire itself was never the problem. The desire is clear. The resistance appears when you demand that your physical mind explain every step before the path has had a chance to reveal itself. It is rather like standing at the beginning of a long road and refusing to move until every turn, every bridge, every intersection, and every person you will meet has been shown to you in advance. But life often reveals the path one step at a time. An idea comes, a conversation happens, something that once seemed ordinary suddenly appears interesting. A person mentions something at exactly the right moment. You feel drawn to make a call, read a book, visit a place, begin a project, or reconsider an opportunity you previously overlooked. And none of these things can be forced effectively from a place of anxiety. They are recognized more easily from a place of alignment. So what you are really asking is not, how can I obtain $1 million without doing anything? What you are really asking is, how can I become aligned enough that the action I take feels inspired rather than forced? How can I allow the path to reveal itself without making struggle the price of admission? How can I stop assuming that abundance must come through methods that feel wrong for me? And those are very different questions, because inspired action does not feel like dragging yourself uphill while life resists you. Inspired action often feels like the next logical step. It may require energy, it may require focus, it may require movement, but it does not carry the same emotional heaviness as action taken from fear. There's a difference between action that comes from, I must do this or everything will fall apart, and action that comes from, this feels interesting, I want to explore this. Something about this direction feels alive. One is an attempt to compensate for misalignment. The other is an expression of alignment. So let yourself stay with the essence of what you want for a moment. You want abundance. You want freedom. You want choices. You want ease. You want the ability to respond to life without constantly measuring every possibility against a feeling of limitation. You want to feel supported. You want to feel that the universe is not withholding from you. And you want to know that you do not have to become someone entirely different in order to receive what you have been asking for. That is the emotional core of the desire. The $1 million is a symbol. It represents spaciousness. It represents relief. It represents the ability to say yes when you want to say yes and no when you want to say no. It represents movement without fear. It represents a feeling that life is working with you rather than against you. And once you understand that, you can begin cultivating those feelings before the full manifestation appears. You can begin telling a story that sounds more like this. I do not yet know every detail, and I do not need to know every detail. There are more possible paths than I can currently see. Other people have stood in uncertainty and later discovered opportunities they could not previously imagine. My inability to see the path today does not mean the path is absent. I can focus on what I want and why I want it without forcing myself to answer questions that are not ready to be answered. And notice what happens when you say those things. The body softens. The mind stops demanding immediate proof. Your attention moves away from the closed door and begins to notice the windows, the hallways, the side paths, and the openings that were invisible while you were staring only at what seemed impossible. This is the beginning of allowing, not pretending that the money is already physically in front of you, not denying your current circumstances, not forcing yourself to believe something that feels unbelievable. Allowing begins by releasing the contradiction. It begins by no longer saying, I want it, but there is no acceptable way for it to come. It begins by saying, I want it, and I am willing to believe that there may be a path that suits me. That is enough for now. You do not have to leap from doubt into absolute certainty in one moment. You only have to choose a thought that feels a little less resistant than the thought before it. And then another, and then another. Like water gradually finding its natural channel, your vibration begins to flow more freely. The door does not have to be forced open. You simply stop leaning against it. Now, once you begin to understand that what you are truly wanting is not merely a number, but the feeling behind the number, something very important begins to shift. Because you may say, I want $1 million, but beneath that statement are many other desires. You want to feel free. You want to feel secure. You want to know that you can make decisions without panic. You want to feel that life is opening rather than narrowing. You want to experience the pleasure of choosing rather than the pressure of settling. You want to feel creative, generous, mobile, and unburdened. And we would say that when you identify these emotional desires, you become far less dependent on one specific path. The number is one representation of freedom, but freedom is the essence. The money is one representation of abundance, but abundance is the essence. The external condition is one possible expression, while the vibration behind it is what you are actually reaching for. And when you begin reaching for the essence first, you stop holding your happiness hostage until the manifestation arrives. That is where many people become tangled. They say, when the money comes, then I will relax. When the opportunity appears, then I will trust. When the evidence is visible, then I will believe that things are working. But the vibration of those statements is still rooted in the absence of what is wanted. You are saying, I will feel better when reality gives me permission. And the difficulty is that reality is responding to the vibration you are already offering. So you wait for the manifestation to change your emotion, while the manifestation is waiting for the emotional shift that allows it. It is not a punishment. It is not the universe withholding something from you. It is simply vibrational consistency. Law of attraction responds to what is active within you. It responds to the story you are practicing. It responds to the expectations that have become familiar. It responds not only to the desire you announce, but also to the meaning you repeatedly attach to the desire. So when you say, I want more money because I'm tired of never having enough, you are speaking about abundance, but you are vibrating in awareness of insufficiency. When you say, I want freedom because I feel trapped, you are naming freedom, but your attention remains on confinement. When you say, I want the opportunity because nothing ever works for me, you are asking for expansion while rehearsing disappointment. And again, there is no judgment in this. You are simply discovering why some thoughts feel lighter and other thoughts feel heavier. Your emotion is not betraying you. Your emotion is showing you the direction of your focus. It is revealing whether the thought you are thinking is moving with the current of what you want or against it. So the question is not, how do I force myself to feel rich when I do not feel rich? The question is, can I find a thought about this subject that gives me a little more relief? Perhaps you cannot yet say, I know exactly how the money is coming. That may feel too far away, but perhaps you can say, I do not need to know today. Perhaps you cannot yet say, I completely trust the process. But you may be able to say, I am becoming more willing to trust that there are possibilities I have not considered. Perhaps you cannot yet say, everything is already working perfectly. But you may be able to say, some things have worked out for me before, even when I could not initially see how they would. That is an emotional journey. And the emotional journey is the important journey. Not because action has no value, but because action taken from alignment is much more effective than action taken from panic. When you are aligned, you notice what you could not notice before. You interpret circumstances differently. You hear the useful part of a conversation. You recognize the idea that has been quietly waiting in the background. You feel the impulse to move, and the movement does not feel like punishment. You are not dragging yourself forward. You are being drawn. There is a difference. One feels like trying to push a river uphill. The other feels like allowing yourself to be carried by a current that already knows where it is going. And so what you are really wanting emotionally is not merely the arrival of $1 million. You are wanting evidence that you live in a responsive universe. You are wanting to feel that your desires matter. You are wanting to know that you do not have to suffer in order to be worthy of receiving. You are wanting to release the old belief that everything valuable must be earned through difficulty. You are wanting to remember that you came into this life expecting expansion, not punishment. And that is where the conversation becomes larger than money. Because money is simply the subject through which you are currently examining your relationship with deserving, trust, freedom, and allowing. The money is helping you see the story you have been telling. It is showing you where you believe life supports you and where you believe life makes you prove yourself. It is showing you whether you expect the universe to cooperate or whether you expect every desire to become a struggle. So do not be angry with the subject. Do not resent the desire. The desire is useful. It is illuminating the beliefs that are ready to be softened. It is helping you discover how often you have confused effort with worthiness. It is showing you how often you have assumed that the harder something is, the more legitimate it must be. But ease is not laziness. Alignment is not avoidance. Allowing is not passivity. There may be action, but aligned action carries a different vibration. It carries curiosity. It carries readiness. It carries a sense of timing. It feels as though a door has opened and you are walking through it because the opening is obvious. You do not have to hammer the wall down. You do not have to prove that you deserve the doorway. You simply recognize it and move. And the more you practice reaching for relief before demanding results, the more familiar this becomes. You begin to say, my emotional state matters. The way I speak about what I want matters. The story I rehearse is becoming my expectation. I do not need to use current circumstances as the only predictor of what is possible. I can acknowledge where I am without declaring that I will remain here. And that last statement is especially important. You can look at your current financial condition and say, this is where I am now. But you do not need to add, and therefore this is where I will always be. You can acknowledge the facts without turning them into a permanent identity. You can call them temporary. You can call them part of the journey. You can say, this is the result of previous momentum, but new momentum is already forming. That thought leaves room for movement. It leaves room for ideas, changes, meetings, opportunities, and discoveries. It leaves room for the universe to arrange what you cannot yet arrange from where you stand. And as you begin to leave that room open, you feel something soften inside you. The body exhales. The mind stops trying to solve the entire future in one afternoon. You begin to realize that the path does not need to be visible all at once. You only need enough openness to recognize the next step when it appears. Now let us talk about resistance, because resistance is often misunderstood. Many people imagine resistance as something dramatic. They think resistance must feel like intense fear, overwhelming doubt, or an obvious refusal to believe. But very often, resistance has become so practiced that it simply feels normal. It sounds like common sense. It sounds like responsibility. It sounds like the voice of experience. It may say, people like me do not receive money easily. There must be a catch. If it were possible, it would already have happened. I have to know where it is coming from. I cannot relax until I see proof. I should be doing more. If I stop worrying, I might miss something. These thoughts may not feel extreme because you have thought them many times. They have become familiar pathways. And a familiar thought is often mistaken for a true thought. But familiar and true are not the same thing. A thought may feel natural simply because you have practiced it. You may have practiced contradiction so consistently that contradiction feels like realism. You may have practiced worry so regularly that peace feels irresponsible. You may have practiced effort so intensely that ease feels suspicious. And so when you begin imagining abundance, the imagination may initially feel foreign. You may enjoy the idea for a moment, and then another voice interrupts. Yes, but how? Yes, but when? Yes, but who would give it to me? Yes, but what if I am disappointed? The desire rises, and the old story follows it. This is not failure. This is awareness. You are beginning to hear the background conversation that has been influencing the vibration. And awareness gives you choice. You cannot deliberately soften a story that you do not know you are telling. So when doubt appears, you do not have to wrestle it to the ground. You do not have to shout over it. You do not have to pretend it is not there. You can simply notice it. You can say, that is the old story. That is the thought I have practiced. That is not necessarily a prediction. It is momentum. And momentum can change. Perhaps you have been driving very quickly in one direction. The moment you choose a better feeling thought, the entire vehicle does not instantly appear on another road. But you have begun to turn, and every thought that follows in the new direction makes the turn easier. This is why we encourage you not to demand an enormous emotional leap. If you feel powerless, do not insist that you must immediately feel complete certainty. That demand can create more resistance. Instead, reach for a thought that feels slightly less powerless. You might say, I do not control every circumstance, but I can influence the story I tell about it. I may not know the outcome yet, but the outcome is not decided by this one uncomfortable moment. I have options I have not discovered. I have lived through uncertainty before. I am learning how to soothe myself instead of frightening myself. Those thoughts do not require you to deny reality. They simply prevent you from using reality as evidence against your future. You see, the current condition is only the result of previous vibrational momentum. It is not the final word. It is not a verdict. It is a snapshot. But when you stare at the snapshot and repeatedly describe it, you continue offering the vibration that helped create it. This is why taking score can slow the process. You say, I asked for this 3 months ago and it is still not here. And now your attention is on its absence. You say, I have been trying to align, but I do not see results. And now your attention is on the lack of evidence. You say, I thought I was doing well, but nothing has changed. And now you are making your emotional stability dependent upon physical proof. It is like planting a seed and digging it up every morning to see whether it has begun to grow. The constant checking disrupts your trust. And we would say, the seed does not need your anxiety. It needs an environment that allows growth. Your desire has already been launched. The contrast created the asking. The moment you recognized what you did not want, a clearer awareness of what you did want was born. That desire became part of your vibrational escrow. It became a living, expanding version of what you have asked for. The universe did not lose it. The universe did not misunderstand it. You do not need to repeat the request from panic as though it was not heard the first time. Your work is not to make the universe understand. Your work is to become a cooperative match to what has already been assembled. And that is where the inner story matters. If your story is, it is late, you practice lateness. If your story is, I am forgotten, you practice being overlooked. If your story is, I must force this, you practice struggle. But when you begin saying, there is movement I cannot yet see, you open. When you say, the timing may contain advantages I do not yet understand, you soften. When you say, my desire has created possibilities beyond the ones I have considered, you become more receptive. The point is not to manipulate the universe with perfect words. The point is to find words that help you stop contradicting your desire. Words are useful because they guide focus. Focus influences emotion. Emotion reveals vibration. And vibration determines what you are able to recognize, receive, and allow. So when resistance appears, treat it as information. It is not an enemy. It is not evidence that your desire is impossible. It is simply the sensation of thinking in opposition to what you have become. The desire has expanded you. A larger version of your life now exists vibrationally. And resistance is the discomfort of continuing to think from the smaller version. That is why the subject can feel so emotionally charged. You are not merely wanting money. You have become vibrationally a person with more freedom, more choice, more abundance, and more capacity. And each thought that says, I cannot, I am stuck, or there is no way, creates distance between your current thought and that expanded version. Your emotion is the distance indicator. Relief means you are closing the gap. Hope means you are closing the gap. Curiosity means you are closing the gap. Even frustration may be movement if you were previously feeling despair. You do not need to judge the steps. You only need to notice whether the thought you are choosing feels more open or more closed. Does it allow the path to exist, or does it declare the path impossible? Does it give the universe room to arrange, or does it insist that the arrangement must already be visible? Does it help your body breathe, or does it cause you to tighten around the subject? These are useful questions because alignment is not a performance. It is not something you prove to anyone. It is the gradual release of thoughts that oppose what you want. It is the softening of an internal argument. It is the willingness to stop telling the story of impossibility long enough for another story to become available. So let us now speak more clearly about vibration, law of attraction, and allowing. Law of attraction is consistent. It is not moody. It does not favor you one day and forget you the next. It does not change its principles according to who is asking. It responds to vibrational resonance. That is why it can become something you trust. Human systems may change. People may behave inconsistently. A parent may respond lovingly one day and impatiently the next. A teacher may appreciate you while another teacher misunderstands you. One authority may approve of your choices while another criticizes the same choices. And because those environments are inconsistent, you may find it difficult to understand what caused the response. But law of attraction does not behave that way. What you think, what you feel, and what you attract remain connected. The relationship may not always be obvious because you carry many beliefs, expectations, memories, and practiced emotional patterns at once. But the law itself is steady. And when you begin observing your own experience with curiosity, you start to recognize the consistency. You notice that on days when you feel rushed and irritated, more irritating details seem to gather around you. You notice that when you begin the day expecting cooperation, helpful people and useful timing become easier to recognize. You notice that when you stop pushing against a problem, an idea that was unavailable during the struggle suddenly appears. You notice that when you deliberately soothe yourself, conversations change. Not because you have controlled every other person, but because you have changed what you are ready to meet. And each time you observe this connection, trust grows. You say, I changed my focus, my emotions shifted, and then something in my experience responded. That is evidence you can use. Not as a rigid test, not as another way to pressure yourself, but as a gentle reminder that your inner state is not separate from your experience. This is why faith and trust are useful words, even though they may sound vague or frustrating when you're asking for a specific result. Faith does not mean forcing yourself to believe an outcome while secretly fearing the opposite. Trust does not mean pretending that you have no questions. Faith is the willingness to accept that the path can exist before you can see it. Trust is the decision not to use the absence of current evidence as evidence of permanent absence. It is saying, I know what I want. I understand why I want it. I have practiced the feeling of it enough that it is becoming familiar. I do not know every detail, but I do not need every detail. That is a powerful state, because when the desire becomes emotionally familiar, circumstances that could not previously connect with you begin to connect. Ideas that would not have occurred to you begin to occur. A meeting that could not have happened while you were hiding in discouragement becomes possible. You feel an impulse to go somewhere, respond to someone, create something, or explore a direction. You may call it coincidence. You may call it timing. You may call it a lucky break. But from a vibrational perspective, you have become available to what your previous resistance prevented you from seeing. And then, when the manifestation arrives, you may look back and wonder how the path came together so naturally. You may say, where was this opportunity before? And the answer is that the components may have existed, but you were not yet in a place where they could rendezvous with you. This does not mean you should blame yourself for every delay. Blame is resistance too. It does not help to say, I ruined everything with my vibration. That is simply another uncomfortable story. Instead say, I am learning. I am becoming more aware. I can soften now. I do not need to be perfect. The universe does not require perfect thoughts. It responds to dominant momentum. A few moments of doubt do not erase your desire. An uncomfortable day does not cancel your vibrational escrow. You are not walking on a narrow rope where one wrong thought destroys everything. You are continually recalibrating. You are continually choosing. And every moment offers another opportunity to lean toward relief. Allowing is not the absence of all negative emotion. Allowing is your willingness to stop making negative emotion mean that something has gone terribly wrong. You can feel doubt and say, this is guidance. You can feel frustration and say, I am focusing in a way that does not match what I want. You can feel fear and say, I am temporarily telling a story of danger. Then you can begin moving toward a thought that feels safer. The emotional guidance system is not there to punish you. It is there to help you navigate. Just as the fuel gauge in a car is not criticizing you when it indicates that the tank is low, emotion is not criticizing you when it indicates resistance. It is simply providing information. And once you understand that, you do not have to be afraid of emotion. You can use it. You can ask, what am I thinking right now that is creating this feeling? Perhaps you are thinking, it should already be here. Perhaps you are thinking, I am running out of time. Perhaps you are thinking, other people receive what they want, but I do not. Perhaps you are imagining the future as a continuation of the most uncomfortable part of the present. And when you identify the thought, you can soften it. It would be nice if it were here now, but its absence today does not mean it is not coming. I may feel urgency, but I do not have to solve everything in this moment. I do not know the full story of other people, and their success does not reduce what is available to me. My future can contain elements that are not visible in my present. Each statement turns you downstream. Each statement places fewer obstacles in the current. And then the law of attraction can respond to the vibration you are increasingly practicing. This is why the emotional journey is not a minor part of manifestation. It is the central part. The external journey is the reflection. The emotional journey is where you change the signal. You move from fear toward relief, from relief toward possibility, from possibility toward hope, from hope toward expectation. And eventually, the feeling of what you want becomes more familiar than the feeling of its absence. That is alignment. When the dream and your practice vibration become compatible, the manifestation is no longer being contradicted. The law responds, not because you have earned a reward, not because you have passed a spiritual examination, but because like vibration has rendezvoused with like vibration. Now, one of the places where people create the greatest resistance is in their insistence that the manifestation must arrive through a particular channel. You may want $1 million, and the mind immediately begins searching the limited inventory of paths it already knows. You consider your current job. You consider an inheritance. You consider a particular business. You consider one person who might help. You consider a lottery ticket. You consider the opportunities that already exist within your present awareness. And then, if none of those possibilities seems likely, you conclude that the desire itself is unlikely. But that conclusion is based only on the paths you can currently see. It does not account for the paths that have not yet been revealed. It does not account for the version of you who will have new ideas. It does not account for people you have not met. It does not account for changes in timing, perspective, skill, interest, or circumstance. It does not account for the universe's ability to bring many cooperative components together. The physical mind says, I do not see a route. The universe says, you are not required to see the entire route from here. Imagine that you are traveling at night. Your headlights do not illuminate the whole road from your current location to your destination. They reveal only the next stretch. And yet that is enough to continue. As you move, more road becomes visible. In the same way, the next step may appear only after you have softened enough to recognize it. You may receive an idea while walking. You may hear a phrase during a conversation that opens a new direction. You may remember an ability you had dismissed. You may become curious about something you previously ignored. You may meet someone who introduces you to someone else. You may take one small action that leads to information, which leads to another action, which leads to an opportunity that could not have been predicted at the beginning. And from the beginning, none of it looked like $1 million. It looked like curiosity. It looked like a conversation. It looked like an idea. It looked like a path that appeared only because you were no longer demanding that it arrive in the form you had already chosen. This is why it is useful to say there are many ways this can come. Not one way. Not one acceptable person. Not one perfect date. Not one dramatic event. Many ways. Abundance may come through an idea. It may come through a collaboration. It may come through a change in your relationship with receiving. It may come through a talent that becomes more valuable in a new context. It may come through a sequence of ordinary-looking events that gather momentum. It may come through a solution that seems obvious only after you are aligned with it. And the purpose of this is not to make promises about specific mechanisms. The purpose is to loosen your attachment to the limited mechanisms you can currently imagine. You do not need to know the path. You need to stop declaring that there is no path. That is a much easier assignment. And when you release the insistence on how, the subject becomes lighter. You can say, I want the experience of abundance. I want a path that feels compatible with me. I am willing to act when action feels inspired. I am willing to rest when rest is the most aligned choice. I am willing to notice ideas without immediately criticizing them. I am willing to let the process unfold through more than one channel. Now you are cooperating. Now the universe has room to arrange meetings, impulses, timing, and opportunities. Think about the many things you receive every day without personally manufacturing them. The sun rises, air is available. The earth produces food. Water moves through the planet. Your body performs countless processes without your conscious supervision. Life itself demonstrates abundance on a scale so constant that you often stop noticing it. You do not wake each morning and negotiate for another supply of oxygen. You do not personally instruct your heart to continue beating. You entered this life surrounded by systems of support. And yet, as you became more socially aware, many of you were taught that material receiving required a price of struggle. You were taught that worth must be proven. You were taught that rest must be justified. You were taught that something received easily is less honorable than something gained painfully. And so, even when you desire ease, part of you may resist it. You may say, it cannot be that simple. We are not saying that every manifestation arrives without any action. We are saying that suffering is not a universal requirement. We are saying that action can be joyful. Focus can be satisfying. Learning can be energizing. Creation can feel like expression rather than sacrifice. You may become deeply engaged in something, but engagement and struggle are not the same vibration. A river can move with tremendous power without strain. A seed can become a tree without anxiety. The universe is filled with expansion that does not look like emotional punishment. And so you can begin releasing the belief that abundance must be purchased with misery. You can say, I am willing to discover what aligned effort feels like. I am willing to be guided toward work, ideas, and opportunities that fit me. I am willing to allow satisfaction to be part of the path, not merely the reward at the end. That is an important shift. Because if you believe that the journey must be unpleasant, you will resist the journey even while asking for the destination. But when you allow the journey itself to contain interest, relief, inspiration, and pleasure, you become much more available to movement. You are no longer saying, I want the outcome, but I reject the path. You are saying, I want the outcome, and I am open to a path that feels increasingly good. And then the path can begin appearing. Perhaps not with fireworks. Perhaps not with an immediate explanation. It may appear quietly. A small opening, a subtle impulse, a feeling of curiosity, a thought that returns more than once, a door that seems ordinary but feels different when you approach it. And when you are not overwhelmed by the demand for certainty, you can explore. You can take the next step without requiring that it prove the entire journey. You can follow the thread. You can allow the universe to reveal the pattern gradually. Now let us return to the question of timing, because this is where your expectation can either become a source of alignment or a source of resistance. You say, I feel that I have launched strong rockets of desire. I have imagined what I want. I believe I have been aligning. But when the manifestation does not arrive when I expected it, doubt begins to grow. And we would say that this is understandable. You are accustomed to measuring progress through visible evidence. You look at what has happened. You look at what has not happened. You compare today with yesterday. You compare yourself with others. You ask whether the money is here yet. You ask whether the opportunity has appeared. You ask whether the situation has changed. And without meaning to, you move from the vibrational journey into constant scoring of the action journey. You say, I have done this inner work for 2 months. Where is the result? But in that moment, your primary focus is not the desired result. Your primary focus is the absence of the desired result. You are making the current reality responsible for maintaining your alignment. And current reality cannot do that for you. Current reality is the culmination of previous momentum. It is yesterday's vibration becoming visible. If you use it as the only basis for what you feel today, you continue feeding yesterday's vibration into tomorrow. So you must find a way to relate differently to what is, not by denying it, not by pretending a bill is not there, not by ignoring practical responsibilities, but by refusing to treat the present condition as permanent. Call it temporary, call it a stage, call it the current page rather than the final chapter. Say, this is where previous momentum has brought me, but it is not where all future momentum must keep me. Say, I have arrived here, but I am not finished here. That thought gives you freedom. You see, the physical world feels solid. You can touch it. You can measure it. You can return to a place after several years and find the same mark on the wall. That continuity gives you a sense of stability, and there is something comforting about it. But because physical reality feels solid, you often forget that it is always becoming. Everything you see is in motion. Circumstances are changing. Relationships are evolving. Ideas are forming. You are interpreting life differently from moment to moment. The now reality is real, but it is not fixed. And when you fixate on what is, you can slow your relationship with what is becoming. You repeatedly describe the current condition, and the description keeps the vibration of the condition active. You say, I do not have enough. I am still waiting. I am behind. Nothing has shifted. And then you wonder why the emotional atmosphere remains the same. So create 2 categories in your mind. There is the current physical reality, which you can acknowledge. And there is the vibrational reality of what you have asked for, which is continuing to expand. You do not have to make the physical reality disappear in order to feel toward the vibrational reality. You can say, yes, this is what is visible today. And yes, I have created more. Yes, I am aware of the current condition. And yes, I am moving towards something different. Yes, the manifestation is not complete. And no, that does not mean nothing is happening. This is how you stop using the present as a weapon against the future. And this is also why we say you never get it done. At first, that may not sound comforting. You may say, I would like to get it done. I would like to reach the place where everything is solved. But the reason you cannot get it done is because you are an expanding being. Every manifestation creates a new vantage point. Every new vantage point reveals new preferences. When the $1 million becomes your current reality, you will not stop desiring. You may feel relief. You may feel pleasure. You may feel satisfaction. But then life will show you new possibilities. You will want to use the resources. You will want to create more. You will want to expand in new directions. You will encounter new contrasts. New rockets of desire will be launched. So completion is not the goal. Alignment with the ongoing expansion is the goal. The purpose is not to reach a place where you never want anything again. The purpose is to become comfortable with wanting while remaining joyful. Can you say, there are things I desire that have not manifested yet, and I can still enjoy my life today? That is freedom. Can you say, I prefer the manifestation, but I do not require it in this moment in order to feel worthy? That is alignment. Can you say, I am on my way and the journey itself contains value? That is allowing. You are not abandoning the desire. You are releasing the struggle around the desire. And then timing becomes less threatening. Someone may ask, has your $1 million arrived? And you may say, not yet. They may ask, then why are you smiling? And you may say, because I no longer interpret not yet as never. I know what the feeling of it is. I know the desire is active. I know that the path can contain details I cannot currently predict. I know that I'm becoming more compatible with what I have asked for. I am not waiting in misery. I am living while it unfolds. That is a powerful place. You are savoring where you are, not because you have given up on where you are going, but because you understand that dissatisfaction with the present does not accelerate the future. You can appreciate now and still desire more. You can feel grateful and still expand. You can enjoy the current page and still turn toward the next one. There is no contradiction in that. The contradiction only comes when you say, I must hate where I am in order to prove that I want something better. You do not need to hate the starting point. You can bless the clarity it has given you. You can acknowledge that contrast helped you identify your desire. You can say, this experience showed me what matters. It showed me that I want freedom. It showed me that I want ease. It showed me that I want to trust myself and life more fully. And now the contrast has served its purpose. You do not need to carry it forward as your identity. Let us now speak about what happens when strong desire meets strong resistance. You said that emotion sometimes trips you up. You may be able to soothe yourself around subjects that matter only a little. But when you deeply care about an outcome, the emotion becomes stronger. You want it so much that the absence of it feels more painful. And we would say that this is because desire creates momentum. When a subject matters deeply, there is more energy moving. If you are aligned with that energy, it feels like enthusiasm, anticipation, inspiration, and eagerness. But if you are focused in opposition to it, the same momentum can feel like anxiety, fear, frustration, or powerlessness. It is like driving a car at high speed. If the road is open, the movement can feel exhilarating. But if you are moving quickly and hit an obstacle, the impact is much stronger than if you had been moving slowly. Some people conclude that the solution is to stop desiring. They say, I should want less. I should lower my expectations. I should protect myself from disappointment. But we would not ask you to reduce the desire. The desire is life moving through you. We would ask you to remove the obstacles from the path. And those obstacles are often the contradictory stories. I want it, but it is not coming. I believe in it, but I'm afraid it will fail. I feel aligned, but I need proof immediately. I know the universe can deliver, but maybe not for me. These are the trees in the road. You do not need to slow the vehicle of desire until life becomes dull. You can begin clearing the road. You can soften the contradiction one thought at a time. And before long, the intensity that once felt overwhelming begins to feel like forward movement. So when the emotion rises, do not conclude that you are doing badly. Ask what story is active. Perhaps the story is the timing is wrong. Perhaps it is, I should be further along. Perhaps it is, if this does not happen soon, something terrible will happen. Perhaps it is, my worth depends upon this result. And when you identify the story, you can separate your worth from the outcome. You can say, this manifestation matters to me, but it does not define my value. I would like it soon, but I do not need to frighten myself about the timing. My desire is strong, and I am learning to let my trust become strong too. I can care deeply without using the desire to hurt myself. That last thought is important. You often take something beautiful that you want and turn it into evidence against yourself. You say, because I want this and do not yet have it, I must be failing. But the existence of the desire does not prove failure. It proves expansion. The desire is evidence that life has caused you to become more. The uncomfortable emotion does not mean the expansion was wrong. It means your current thought has not yet caught up with what you have become. So, soothe yourself. Not as a technique to force the result. Soothe yourself because relief is your natural direction. Soothe yourself because you deserve not to suffer while the path unfolds. Soothe yourself because when the mind is less frightened, it becomes more receptive. You may place a hand over your heart and simply acknowledge, I am feeling urgency. I am feeling afraid that it will not happen. I am feeling disappointed that it is not here. I do not have to judge these feelings. I can let them move. Then begin reaching gently. There is still time. There may be progress I cannot measure. One moment of doubt does not erase my desire. I have not missed every opportunity. I am not required to solve the entire subject now. I can pause. I can breathe. I can allow the emotional wave to pass without building a larger story around it. When you stop arguing with emotion, the emotion often begins to soften. The body exhales. The mind becomes less insistent. And in that space, the broader perspective can return. You remember that you are not dealing with a fragile universe. You are not trying to convince a reluctant source to give you something. You are not bargaining for worthiness. You are working with a consistent law. You ask through desire. The universe responds by assembling vibrational possibilities. You allow by moving into greater compatibility. That is the process. And it does not require emotional perfection. It requires a willingness to keep turning in the direction of relief. So when the subject feels large, make the next emotional step small. Do not say, I must feel completely abundant right now. Say, I can feel a little less afraid. Do not say, I must believe the $1 million is guaranteed. Say, I can believe that more possibilities exist than I currently see. Do not say, I must never doubt again. Say, when doubt appears, I know how to soothe it. These thoughts are believable, and believable relief is more useful than unbelievable certainty. As relief becomes familiar, expectation changes. As expectation changes, the vibration changes. As the vibration changes, the experience begins to reorganize around it. You may not see the full rearrangement immediately, but you begin to feel the internal shift. And that internal shift is evidence. It is the first manifestation. Before the money, there is relief. Before the opportunity, there is openness. Before the visible path, there is a willingness to believe that a path can appear. These are not insignificant. They are the beginning of the new momentum. Now let us help you tell the new story more deliberately. The old story may have sounded like this. I want $1 million, but I do not know how to get it. I want freedom, but I feel trapped. I want abundance, but I keep seeing evidence of limitation. I have been waiting too long. I am afraid I will have to do things I do not want to do. I am worried that I will miss the opportunity. I feel powerless when the result does not appear on my schedule. The new story does not need to deny your experience. It simply needs to stop strengthening the parts of the experience you do not want to continue. So perhaps the new story begins here. I am becoming clearer about what I want. I want abundance because I enjoy freedom, movement, choice, creativity, and generosity. I do not need to know the entire path today. I am open to a path that is compatible with who I am. There are people who once stood where I stand and later discovered routes they could not previously imagine. There are ideas I have not thought yet. There are people I have not met yet. There are cooperative components already moving into place. I do not need to force the arrangement. My work is to become increasingly available to it. Notice that this story feels different. It does not make a dramatic promise that the physical mind cannot accept. It simply stops arguing against possibility. Then you can continue. I am learning the difference between forced action and inspired action. I am willing to move when movement feels clear. I am willing to pause when pausing brings me back into alignment. I do not have to use exhaustion as evidence of commitment. I do not have to struggle in order to prove that I deserve to receive. I can let satisfaction be part of the journey. I can enjoy ideas before I know where they lead. I can follow curiosity without demanding an immediate guarantee. This story gives your life room to surprise you. And then you may speak about timing. The fact that it is not visible today does not mean it is not becoming. Not yet is not the same as never. I am not behind in a universe that is continually expanding. I can let timing contain intelligence. I can stop measuring every day as a success or failure. I can recognize emotional relief as real progress. I am becoming more stable in the feeling of what I want. I am learning to trust the law through my own experience. And then you may speak about current reality. What I see today is real, but it is temporary. It represents previous momentum, not the limit of future possibility. I can acknowledge where I am without building a permanent identity around it. I have culminated here, but I am not finished here. New thoughts are creating new momentum. New momentum is preparing new experiences. The new story is not a script you repeat mechanically while feeling terrified. It is a direction. It is a series of thoughts that become increasingly believable. You may not believe all of them equally at first. Choose the ones that bring relief. Stay with those. Let them become familiar. Then another thought will become available. It is like walking through fog. You do not need to see the entire landscape. You take one step, and the next part of the path appears. You take another step, and more becomes visible. This is how vibrational change often feels. At first, you simply stop making the situation worse in your mind. Then you begin to feel neutral, then hopeful, then curious, then expectant, then natural. Eventually, the new story does not feel like positive thinking. It feels like your story. And when the feeling of abundance becomes familiar, you are no longer shocked by abundance. You are no longer pushing it away by insisting that it is impossible. You are prepared to recognize it. You are prepared to receive it. You are prepared to participate in the path without turning every step into a test of your worth. The universe may arrange something through a person. It may arrange something through an idea. It may arrange something through a sequence of events that appears slow at first and then accelerates. It may arrange something through a change in your own perception that causes you to recognize value where you previously saw nothing. You do not need to supervise every mechanism. You need to remain open enough to notice the mechanism when it becomes relevant. And so tell the new story not to control the universe, but to free yourself from the old contradiction. Tell the new story because it feels better. Tell it because it helps you breathe. Tell it because it turns you toward possibility. Tell it because every time you tell it, you become less attached to struggle and more available to inspiration. You are not attempting to hypnotize yourself into an unrealistic belief. You are choosing not to rehearse limitation as though limitation were the only truth. You are making space for more. And in that space, the path can begin appearing. Now let us move into a gentle sequence of affirmations. Do not force them. Do not use them to fight your current circumstances. Let them be soft opening. Let them be thoughts you can rest in. Let them create a little more space around the subject. You might begin, I know what I want, and I am becoming clearer about why I want it. I want freedom. I want choice. I want ease. I want creative expression. I want to feel supported by life. I want to experience abundance in ways that feel compatible with who I am. I do not need to know every detail today. I do not need to solve the entire path in this moment. There are possibilities that I cannot yet see. There are ideas that can arrive naturally. There are conversations that can open doors. There are people with whom I can rendezvous at the right time. There are many paths to what I want. I am not limited to the few paths I currently understand. I am willing to let the universe surprise me. I am willing to notice what feels interesting. I am willing to follow impulses that feel clear and satisfying. I am learning to trust inspired action. I am releasing the belief that struggle is the price of worthiness. I do not have to exhaust myself to deserve abundance. I do not have to suffer in order to receive. I can be responsible without being afraid. I can be focused without being tense. I can take action without making action a punishment. I can rest without believing that everything will fall apart. My desire has already created expansion. My vibrational escrow contains more than I can currently see. The universe has not forgotten what I have asked for. I do not need to ask from panic again and again. I can move into receiving. I can soften my resistance. I can tell a better feeling story. I can acknowledge current reality without making it permanent. Where I am now is temporary. Where I am now is not the limit of where I can go. Previous momentum brought me here. New momentum is already forming. I am becoming more aware of the connection between thought, emotion, and experience. My emotions are guidance. They are not punishment. When I feel resistance, I can pause. I can breathe. I can choose a thought that feels slightly better. I do not need to leap from fear into certainty. Relief is enough for this moment. A little hope is enough. A little openness is enough. A little willingness is enough. I am allowing my relationship with abundance to become lighter. I am allowing the idea of money to feel less urgent and more spacious. I am allowing myself to imagine without demanding immediate proof. I am allowing timing to contain value. I am allowing the path to unfold in steps. I do not interpret not yet as never. I am not measuring my worth by the speed of a manifestation. I am worthy now. I am expanding now. I am learning now. I am moving now, even when the movement is not yet visible. I can appreciate what is working. I can notice abundance that already surrounds me. I can recognize support in forms I previously overlooked. I can let appreciation open my awareness without pretending that I do not want more. I can appreciate and desire at the same time. I can enjoy today while allowing tomorrow to become more. I do not need to hate my present in order to create a better future. I can make peace with where I am. I can bless the clarity that contrast has given me. I know more clearly what I want because of what I have experienced. I am becoming a vibrational match to greater freedom. I am becoming familiar with the feeling of support. I am becoming familiar with the feeling of possibility. I am becoming familiar with the feeling of receiving. Ideas can arrive gently. Opportunities can unfold naturally. The right action can feel obvious when the timing is right. I can recognize an open door. I can walk through it without needing to know where every future door will be. I trust myself to respond to what appears. I trust that I will know more when I need to know more. I trust that clarity can come step by step. Law of attraction is consistent. I can observe the relationship between what I practice and what I experience. I can build trust through my own emotional journey. Every time I soothe myself, I become more available. Every time I stop telling the old story, I weaken its momentum. Every time I choose relief, I turn toward alignment. I am not required to be perfect. One difficult moment does not erase my progress. One doubtful thought does not cancel my desire. I can begin again in any moment. I can choose again now. I am open. I am listening. I am allowing. I am becoming comfortable with expansion. I am becoming comfortable with receiving. I am becoming comfortable with the idea that good things can arrive through satisfying paths. I do not have to force life. I do not have to chase every possibility. I can align and then respond. I can let my body exhale. I can let the pressure decrease. I can let the subject become lighter. I can let abundance become a natural expectation rather than a desperate demand. What I want is becoming emotionally familiar. The feeling of freedom is becoming familiar. The feeling of ease is becoming familiar. The feeling of trust is becoming familiar. And as these feelings become familiar, I become ready to recognize the physical expressions that match them. I am on my way. I do not need to rush the unfolding. I can enjoy the becoming. I can savor the movement. I can live now. and I can allow more. And now, as we bring all of this together, we want you to remember that you are not trying to reach a final place where desire ends. You are not attempting to complete life. You are participating in expansion. Contrast causes you to ask. The asking creates a vibrational version of what is wanted. You then move emotionally toward that version. You practice thoughts that become more compatible with it. You imagine, you soften, you allow, and when your practice vibration and the desire becomes sufficiently aligned, manifestation follows. Law says it must, but then something else happens. You stand in a new place. You see life from a new vantage point. New preferences arise. New desires are launched. New rockets enter your vibrational escrow. And the process continues. This is not evidence that you are never satisfied. It is evidence that you are alive. Expansion is the nature of consciousness. You did not come here to reach one final manifestation and then become motionless. You came to experience the pleasure of clarity, alignment, discovery, and creation. So make peace with being eternally incomplete. Those words may sound contradictory until you feel what they mean. Eternal and complete cannot truly coexist. If you are eternal, you will continue becoming. And if you continue becoming, there will always be more to explore, more to desire, and more to allow. The $1 million is not the end. It is one experience. It may become a delightful now reality. You may enjoy it fully. You may use it. You may appreciate the freedom it provides. But you will still be you, an expanding being, standing at the leading edge of new possibility. So do not postpone joy until completion. Completion is not coming. Expansion is, and expansion can feel wonderful when you stop using unfinished desires as evidence that something is wrong. You can say, yes, there are things I want that are not yet manifested. And yes, I can feel good now. Yes, I prefer more. And yes, I appreciate what is already here. Yes, I am becoming. And no, I do not need to rush. This is the ease you have been looking for. It is not the absence of desire. It is the absence of argument with desire. It is the feeling of moving with the current rather than against it. You know that the river is carrying you. You know that the path is appearing. You know that your emotional guidance will help you recognize when you are resisting and when you are allowing. You no longer need every condition to change before you can breathe. You breathe first. You soften first. You tell the better feeling story first. And then you become available to the rearrangement. The universe can bring ideas. It can bring timing. It can bring cooperative people. It can bring unexpected connections. It can bring a path that, from your former perspective, would have seemed unlikely. But your task is not to demand that the entire arrangement become visible now. Your task is to stop insisting that nothing is happening simply because you cannot yet see everything. So let the subject rest. Let the desire remain. Let the pressure go. Say, I have asked. Say, the universe has responded. Say, I am learning to receive. Say, I can live my life while the components gather. Say, I can enjoy the next idea without demanding that it explain the entire future. Say, I can trust the opening door. You do not have to know what waits behind every door. You only need to recognize the one that is open now. And if no door appears open in this moment, then perhaps this moment is for soothing. Perhaps it is for appreciation. Perhaps it is for resting the mind. Perhaps it is for turning your attention towards something that already feels good so that resistance around the larger subject can subside. There is no wasted alignment. A moment spent feeling better is not a distraction from manifestation. It is movement toward it. A walk can be part of the path. A laugh can be part of the path. A peaceful afternoon can be part of the path. A conversation unrelated to money can place you in the emotional state where a useful idea later arrives. The universe is not as compartmentalized as the physical mind often believes. Alignment in one area can soften resistance in another. Joy makes you receptive. Appreciation makes you receptive. Relief makes you receptive. And so you do not have to stare at the desire every moment. You can let life fill you. You can enjoy what is already available. You can allow abundance to begin as emotional spaciousness. Then, when the physical evidence begins appearing, it will feel like the natural continuation of a story you have already been practicing. You will not say, "This came from nowhere." You will understand that the pathway was forming as you softened. The meetings were becoming possible. The ideas were moving closer. The timing was arranging. And you were gradually becoming ready to see what had previously been hidden by contradiction. So leave this conversation with less urgency. Leave with more openness. Leave with the understanding that you do not have to earn your right to ask. Contrast has already created the asking. You do not have to supervise the universe's response. You do not have to force yourself into actions that feel wrong merely to prove that you are serious. You can align. You can listen. You can act when the impulse is clear. You can adjust when emotion tells you that you have returned to the old story. You can begin again as often as needed. And you can tell yourself, things are moving. Possibilities are gathering. I'm becoming lighter around this subject. I am willing to let the path surprise me. I am not finished, and that is not a problem. I am expanding, and that is the purpose. I can trust what I have become. I can trust the consistency of the law. I can trust myself to recognize the next step. I can begin telling a better feeling story now. And from that story, the body relaxes. The breath deepens. The grip loosens. The door begins to open. The path becomes easier to recognize. And what once felt distant begins to feel increasingly natural, increasingly possible, and increasingly compatible with who you now understand yourself to be. You are not trying to force abundance toward you. You are releasing the resistance that has kept you from recognizing how abundance has been trying to reach you through many different paths. You are allowing life to cooperate. You are allowing yourself to receive. And step by step, thought by thought, feeling by feeling, the inner story and the outer experience begin to align.